guys, and welcome back to Belle's Books. Today I'm going to be doing my first ever study with me video, and I'm going to be studying and reading the Psychomachia of Prudentius today. And I got this for my birthday from my aunt, and it's basically a commentary and introduction to a really important late Latin Roman poem. And today I'm just going to be reading the introduction, making some notes, and I thought you might like to join me. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more content, and let's get started. So if I'm making notes just for fun, I'll usually make the notes in the book itself on sticky notes and underlining things, rather than making notes in a whole separate notebook. The author of the Psychomachia was a man named Aurelius Prudentius Clemens. His work can be dated to the year 404 CE, and I found it really interesting how we can use major historical events such as the consulship of Salia, which occurred in 348 CE, to date minor events like the writing times of authors. Despite Prudentius being an educated man, he was not a monk, and so I started to think about the significance of this perspective and the impact it might have had on his writing. The introduction encouraged me to consider Prudentius's literary connections and network. Poets never write in isolation from others. Their past and their present affects them. Following the end of Prudentius's political career, he experienced a kind of religious conversion and started searching for more meaning in life. We might consider that even though he was born into a Christian family, that didn't mean that he was a practicing Christian, so we might mark this time in his life as the moment that he truly converted to Christianity. The introduction claims that the writing, the literature of this period was intensely competitive, and that, like carbon under intense pressure, this literary climate produced a few bright gems. I'd surely argue the same for most periods though. At some point, there's always pressure, there's always competition, and a few works stand out as better than others. The introduction also mentioned how a writer always has a specific audience, even if others end up reading our work too. And I found this incredibly interesting to think about. We're always told to write things with an audience, with a reader in mind, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that person, that imaginary person, is going to be the only one who consumes our work. And so perhaps when we write or when we create, we might think how our work will be received by a wider variety of people. Considering Prudentius as a Christian, we can begin to think about the structural similarities of his work to the Bible, and we can remember the importance of looking for these when we read. According to this, Prudentius was aware of his influences, both biblical and non-biblical. Just as he deliberately incorporated stories, he also references and identifies Virgil as his source and demonstrates the difference between his epic and that of Virgil's. We might consider how identifying these influences shapes and explains the Roman perception of the Bible and everyday life. Finally, about 19 pages into the introduction, the author decides to talk about just why this work is so important. Apparently, the Psychomachia was the first full-scale personification allegory in the Western literary tradition. Any claim to originality as broad as this is naturally met with skepticism, and every ingredient used by Prudentius can be found in earlier works. Nevertheless, Prudentius combines them to create something that deserves to be called original as much as any text ever could be. As I've been taught that no text can ever be considered original, I think this statement is not only incredibly impactful, but kind of demonstrates just how important this work is, how important it is for you if you're studying English literature to read it. The introduction then went on to talk about reception and manuscripts for a while, and this is when I got drawn back in when I learned another awesome fact that made me really excited. Apparently, from the 6th century, if not earlier, Prudentius was studied by scholars and his poems were read in schools during the Middle Ages. Clearly, he was a writer of great importance, and perhaps by the way he shaped the literature and the lives of those in the Middle Ages, we can consider how he might have shaped our literature and lives today. Although this introduction is certainly not light reading, and you really have to dig to find the exciting facts that make you go, wow, that's interesting, I do think that it brought attention to some really interesting details about the importance of this text and what to expect when reading it. Please don't forget to like and subscribe and comment down below if you enjoyed this video, and I can make more if you are interested. I love studying, I love reading, and it's fun to share that with people, and if it motivates you, then that's just a bonus. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye!